when I was 9 months old, I had surgery to have my right eye removed because there was a tumor growing back there.
You're born into this identity of being an African American.
She found a family tree that traced back to Frederick Douglass.
How did your faith help you with resilience through that journey?
You don't necessarily have another person, another human to lean on, so it definitely strengthened their faith.
How did you kind of first get into storytelling?
It starts as a hobby first. I've been to over 15 countries on 4 different continents. The one that I end up referencing often is my trip to Ghana. That really inspired me to intentionally continue to find home. There are plenty of opportunities out there. You just gotta shift your mindset about it first.
Today's guest is a master of creative strategy and branding. She's a cancer survivor. She's authored books and articles, and she's spoken very vocally about a lot of topics from the African diaspora to creating your own story and branding it online. Please welcome today's guest, Zaakirah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, salam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor. Your story truly is inspiring, and as the
Thank
audience
you.
heard, from the get-go, like there's so many like parts of you, like a very multifaceted individual. So today we're going to dive into that, and we're going to learn a lot about you and about ourselves as well through this journey. As always, we like to start at the beginning, to start with the story, the origin story behind you. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, my name is Zaakirah and it is Arabic. I am a Muslimah and my background is in the United States, mainly Miami, Florida, but by way of Atlanta, Georgia, by way of New York City. And I was one of those who was born into the religion where my mom and dad chose to revert. So I'm the youngest of three, and yeah, I grew up just being, the term is coined African American. So you're both, because at some point, 400 plus years ago, you did come from Africa. But because you're so separated from that history, I'm American, Black American, is what some people will call it. And so, yeah, that was the sense of my identity. But then the other part of my identity is, yes, being a cancer survivor. And it's a childhood eye cancer. So if you are, watching the YouTube version, you'll see that one eye is moving faster than the other. It's because that one eye is a prosthetic eye. So when I was 9 months old, I had surgery to have my right eye removed because there was a tumor growing back there. And it was very rare. I'm in my early 30s, so it was very rare at the time. There was not enough technology to save the eye. So the entire eye was removed. So I've been um, seeing life literally through one lens ever since. And as a result of the treatment to make sure that there's no more tumors growing in the other eye, it was a radiation treatment. And so I also have lost my hearing just a little bit. So that has definitely impacted how I choose to do business, how I choose to travel. Um, but that's me for now.
Wow, subhanallah. I mean, it's a very unique story, very unique to who you are, and I can imagine that from that, it shaped a lot of your decisions and a lot of what you decided to do. But one thing you touched on is that was really interesting actually is kind of about you're born into this identity of being an African American, and you don't really get to pick one or the other. It's kind of like they're not mutually exclusive. It's kind of what came about, obviously because of what happened hundreds of years ago. How do you think like that has kind of shaped your identity, um, kind of growing up?
Yeah, so my parents, they were actually older, right? I'm the youngest, so they were older. So my parents grew up and had their identity shaped by the US history in the 70s. So maybe names like Malcolm X might be familiar, Bob Marley might be familiar. And so they grew up with the understanding about the history, even though there are gaps in the history, they understood, that there is history that we don't know of in the continent of Africa. So by the time I'm, asking all my questions about my own identity, they were able to really trace back what they could and tell me like um where they were from generationally. And so family reunions are important. Family gatherings are important. Um, and if you can look at family trees, those are also very important. So knowing from a very, very young age, especially on my mom's side of the family, she found a family tree that traced back to part of, there's another pretty famous abolitionist by the name of Frederick Douglass. And knowing that we are descendants of Frederick Douglass. So when I see those images and learn their stories, read their autobiographies, and make the connection, that really inspires me to intentionally continue to find home, wherever I go.
I like that. That's what it's about. That's what the show is about as well. Like I like that little like the line that the finding a home is what it's about because you're born into somewhere where maybe you can't just pick one side, as we said. Like it's part of the identity. Is everything. I am an American. I'm African. I'm both. The same way that over here for myself and my identity, I am Ghanaian. I am Lebanese. I am British. I'm all of it. And it's that like overlapping of cultures and the overlapping of who we are that shapes us.
Mhm,
Exactly,
mhm.
and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and I guess for you as well, that like that's only one side of you. You have that side of you being of that descent, and then at the same time, that experience, that young at a young age, like how did that shape your journey, going through what you went through with the cancer and kind of getting through that, and it happening at such a young age. How did that shape you?
Yeah, kudos to my parents. They definitely raised me to be a confident woman first, whether or not, they did give me the choice, are you going to continue being Muslim or not? It's up to you. But at the core of it all, just being um, an African American or Black American woman in an environment where there were not many people that looked like me, yet alone many people that had the same type of cancer that I have, because my type of cancer is still very rare, less than 1 in 200 or something in the US alone. So I think it was just my parents instilling that confidence in me at a young age, um, to just understand that my difference is a superpower because I cannot see as well, because I cannot hear as well. I have other senses, like my intuition, my ambition. So being able to have that confidence at such a young age, really did shape who I am as well as shape, um, what I chose to do with my life. And I think because also my parents wanted me to be ambitious, by the time they could sense that I was a creative, um, and I was a good storyteller, good writer, good listener, they just kind of, sat back and let me do what I need to do to figure out, what it is that I want to do. And then I realized that as I got older, there's a term they call griot, so GRIOT, and it's basically any form of a storyteller. So yeah.
Okay, wow. I mean, that's amazing. And the fact that you had the support network is great to hear. I mean, there's definitely people that don't have that. So that's amazing that you had that growing up. And I was curious, kind of, you said that you were born Muslim into that like family. How did your faith help you with resilience through that journey?
Yeah. Again, my parents first, right? So because I think the way that they have put it to me is that discovering my cancer diagnosis, going through my cancer diagnosis, going through the surgery really strengthened their faith, because you don't necessarily have another person, another human to lean on. So it definitely strengthened their faith. And they attribute it to the reason why I'm probably jumping all over, but I do have a podcast. And in the first season of my podcast, I interviewed my mom on one episode and I interviewed my dad on one episode, and they said the same thing, that it was really the faith that brought them through the cancer journey and kept them married. Most people going through any kind of trauma and trials and tribulation. Marriage is the first thing that's not the most important thing. So, them being able to lean on their faith even more during my cancer diagnosis, really shaped also, their life. They were able to fulfill pilgrimage later on in life. They were able to move to a different part of Florida, Tampa, Florida, where I got to go to an Islamic school for 1 year. But I also was able to do like Islamic summer camps for a couple of years. So seeing how they would strengthen their faith around the house, it would kind of help me to choose, how much of a practicing Muslim do I choose to be? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think like these like tests almost that we go through in life, these are what test the faith, right? So when sometimes when life is going really well, we can forget about our faith and it's easy to put it on the side. And then when we need it, then we'll be calling, okay, God, help me. But it's important to kind of maintain a good balance throughout, right? Um, yeah, and it sounds like through the journey from your youth, it was all about your parents, your faith, like the identity that they helped you to build and instill in yourself, the confidence. Um, and then I guess you said that you felt that you were a natural storyteller. So talk us through a little bit. How did you kind of first get into that whole thing, like storytelling, as your job and your profession?
Yeah. So it starts as a hobby first. It starts at one of those hobbies, especially for me, it's specifically through the age of like 7 to 13. If you give a child something and you leave them alone and that's the thing that they're focusing on, we don't realize it until we're a lot older, but technically that's where your purpose is. It's somewhere in between that thing. So I was about 5 years old when my mother introduced me to a camera. It was one of those, well, it's the Polaroid camera is back, but it was a different kind of Polaroid camera back then. So all she did was show me how to take that picture. Just push this button and then you take a picture. And I mean, they weren't like most people's first pictures are blurry and of nothing. And then, but she was saying like, you have really good pictures. Like, what is this? So she kept like all my pictures from the day where you had to go from a Polaroid camera to the ones where you had to go to the grocery store, the convenience store to go let them print out the film and give it back to you in a week. So all of this was happening between the age of 7 and 13. But also what was happening was my mom was just like, okay, the teachers are saying she's not talking in school. We don't know why because I know she's very chatty at home. Let's figure out, what other sources of expression she needs. So then I was also um introduced to the concept of journaling. So I would journal, but I think I was always just very descriptive, like almost as if someone was right there. Of course, there's a parent who would invade your privacy, as you call it, and
Mm.
she would come across my journal. But I remember she would say like, but it was I know I shouldn't have been staying reading, but you were actually writing pretty good descriptive stuff. So between photography, between writing, and then one of the other things that a family member used to say was that I asked too many questions. But technically, the question, and other people would say they're actually really good questions. So all of these just kind of became natural to me of my curiosity of self, my curiosity of people, of my curiosity of the world. And all of that eventually, thanks to the power of technology, I was able to play around a little bit. There's these social media platforms that um, let you type as many words as you want to type and eventually record audio and record video and upload photos and make video slideshows and all of that was fun for me. And then, I went to a technical school is what they call it, where you can get your high school diploma and get an entry level certification into a certain program. And so I was able to go to a high school that I could do both. And I got to do a professional photography program and then this is when I really started to travel as well. So all those photography taking skills, those question and asking and answering skills, I was brushing up my skill set even when I was in my first few international trips. So then I was able to turn that into taking people with me, virtually who have never been to certain countries and that's when I realized, okay, I have a gift for this.
Mm. So it starts as like a innate kind of talent, I suppose. You just find out these things, as you said, through those like kind of early ages. You try things, whatever's in front of you, it kind of you get drawn to, right? If you're around like cars, you might get drawn to cars. If you're around journals, you're gonna get drawn to journals. And for your case, it was a mixture of many things. Um, that's very interesting and very cool, actually. Like, and the program sounds cool as well. I don't really think we have that over here in the UK as much, like these technical schools where you can kind of have these opportunities in the programs. I think it's starting to be kind of more available now, but at least when I was in high school, we didn't really have that option. But it's amazing that you were able to do that and start traveling. And obviously, I think traveling is like one of the best ways to learn about yourself and obviously about the world. Did you kind of have any growth or like really memorable experiences when you were traveling?
Well, it's hard to answer now. I've been to over half of the United States. I've been to over 15 countries on 4 different continents. So,
Wow.
um, it's really hard to have just one memorable experience, but I think the one that I end up referencing often, um, is my trip to Ghana. When I finished high school, I went to Ghana. That was my first ever African country. And that was a part of an organization that it was like a shortened version of an organization called like the Peace Corps, where you are of service in the local
Hmm.
community and immersing yourself into culture for the summer. And when I went to Ghana, the primary like task that we had was to teach English at a primary school. But also on the side, we were helping to build a clinic in a local community that did not have one. And then
Wow.
also on the side, I did have my camera on my hip because it was the one where you had to have the long strap and the interchangeable lens. So I'm taking pictures of the children that I was teaching. Um, and for them, that was their first time seeing themselves because most of them did not have a home with, the smartphones were not that popular yet, and they didn't have homes with mirrors. So they're seeing themselves for the first time, and they're just so excited. And so being there where they see themselves, I'm also learning more about myself. Now, nowadays, there's plenty of tests out there where you can take your DNA and submit it to them, and they will give you an approximate estimate of where you are from. But at the time that I was in Ghana, I just got a lot of questions from the locals and the teachers, and they're like, "You're from here. You look like you're from here. You don't sound like you're from here, but you look like you're from here. Are you from here?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We don't know. Our history, was taken away from us. I don't know." But
Hmm.
fast forward maybe about 15 years later, when I did do the DNA test, I did see a small percentage of Ghana. So those kind of travel moments are always amazing, where you go to some place that was home and you didn't even know it.
Hmm. No, I can imagine it must be like so surreal to be able to have done the experience first and like maybe felt something when you were there, like, I feel like I've been here before. Maybe, like my ancestors were here or something. And then when you then find out you actually were, like, it must be an amazing moment.
It
Yeah, and
was,
I feel like
yeah.
those are the stories that I feel like kind of shape us, and a lot of us have those moments where things like that happen, where you can connect with somewhere, or you find out like, okay, this is my calling, this is what I want to do. I want to share my story. I want to share what I've done, who I am as a unique individual. How do you think like people nowadays with all the technology we have can kind of start building and leveraging on their identity to build a personal brand?
Yeah, I think I've always empowered people to make sure you have the confidence to tell your story first, and don't think of yourself as a victim of whatever trauma you went through, because you'll eventually realize that you were not the only one to go through that similar trauma. And so the minute you step outside of your own comfort zone and tell your story, that's when you'll really realize that, okay, I am learning more about myself the more I talk about it out loud or in a journal or to someone you trust. And then, of course, with the power of technology, YouTube, for example, there's a lot of people now confidently using their YouTube channel to talk about the different aspects of their story. For example, right now in the U.S., there's a lot of uh, African American women who are being shut out from their jobs. So they're actually like, okay, I kind of need to step into entrepreneurial work, and I don't even know where to start. And I always tell people, start with your story. Start with that 7 to 13 year old. What was it before you had to just work this job because that's what had to keep you alive? What was that about? And then people will discover we discover their love for travel, or we discover their love for going specifically to an African continent, for example. So I've always encouraged people to make sure that you're confident and then think back to the good things, weigh out the good versus the bad, and talk about your story publicly, because there's always someone that has been going through the exact same thing as you have been.
Hmm. Definitely. It's about that relatability as well. It's like you said, it's about flipping the trauma to kind of use it as to empower you because life can't be easy. It can't be simple. So how do we flip that? How do we frame it to then have more confidence to tell that story and then grow from it? And it sounds like you've done that. And it sounds like and obviously I look at your work and you're still traveling, you're writing, you're speaking in all these places and you have these amazing opportunities. And that's all thanks to your confidence. if you hadn't ever stood up to talk about it, you wouldn't have had these opportunities. So I guess kind of from the opportunities you've had to kind of go to Africa, like Kenya, Ghana, and all these places and travel, what do you think is kind of like, I guess it's a hard question to answer, but like, what do you think the future is looking like, especially as like the African diaspora, for us to be able to kind of go back home or give back to the motherland and kind of develop in that sense?
Yeah, I think the narrative first has to change about Africa and Ghana and Kenya and South Africa. Because there's a lot more YouTubers sharing their real time experiences, they can debunk the myths, right? But for a long time, all people knew were whatever commercial of the babies that are hungry and starving and underweight versus the ones that are smiling. They don't have their tooth yet, but they're happy to hug you and just see you and love on you. So first you have to shift your own mindset first about that, right? Like it's not all bad. And then now people can depend on other YouTube videos, other podcasts of those who have went to the country, especially most recently. So for me, it was interesting because I went back in like 2011. I barely had photos on YouTube. I had like one photo slideshow from my time in Ghana and just left it alone, never talked about it. But more people are talking about it. They're talking about their experiences. There's been a lot of people that went to these African continents through organizations like the Peace Corps, and chose to move there. Right, a lot of people want to live in other countries other than the one that gave them the life of comfort, gave them the education. So first, just once you debunk the myth and then do your own research, find out which countries are calling your name or have always called your name, and you'll never know unless you can actually do a DNA test to find out if those countries are actually a part of your DNA. You can do it that way. But otherwise, people are now choosing. I'm focused on Africa because that was my decision. The minute I
Mm,
landed in Ghana, I was like, I want to go to more African countries. I'm grateful to go to European countries. I'm grateful to have gone to London. But I'm like, there's something about the African continent. And now there's statistics. Most of the technology companies are thinking the same thing. They're like, okay, well, now let's give back to Africa. We took so much from it so many years ago. Now let's, put everything right back into it. The new skills, the new
mm.
technology. So there are plenty of opportunities out there. You just gotta shift your mindset about it first.
Yeah, I think you're right. It starts with mindset. It starts with the education, as you said. It's about how can we like empower the youth, especially because I don't like Africa. The youth in Africa, or sorry, Africans' population is majority youth. Like they have like 60% of the population is like under 25 or under 30. So they're ready to work and they're ready to do amazing things. As you said, a lot of tech companies are moving over there, and a lot of startups are happening over there. So it's about us, and I feel like it's kind of our responsibility almost as the diaspora in the more developed countries, so to speak. It is our duty to support them in that development. And a lot of people, as you said, are moving back. Like this year alone, I know so many people that moved back to Ghana and are now working on startups and in that ecosystem because there's opportunity now. People are seeing that, wait, why am I spending my whole life giving to this country, which isn't really, it's giving me my education and like my comfort, as you said, but it doesn't really respect me and it hasn't respected me historically. So why should I stay? I think that that's the hard thing to battle is like is do I just get up and go? I feel like what would you say is like a way to kind of take some baby steps to kind of do that? Because it's not possible for everyone to just get up and go. So what would you recommend as like a good starting point?
Yeah, I would always encourage people to go to that country first. Make it a
Mm,
10-day vacation, if you will. Use your paid time off, and go to that country first. A lot of people have done that, or they have never used their paid time off at work. They've been working for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and never used their paid time off at work. So use that time off of work to go to, again, I'm pro Africa, right? Go to that country first, whatever
mm,
is the one that's calling your name. And I would definitely say Kenya, for example, you can do three countries in one visa. South Africa, you don't even, well, I think they changed it. Like for a while, there's a few African countries where if you have a American or a UK passport, you can go there without a visa. But just go visit for a vacation first, and then you'll see why a lot of people just like, okay, I'm going. That's it, right? It's the quality of life. It's um the currency exchange rate is kind of a boost in a way. You can get more bang for your buck, as they call it in the US. And just, go for a vacation first. Choose an African country as your vacation versus, getting on a cruise or going to a safari. And start with that first.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think when you can travel, I think that's one thing that we kind of forget sometimes is that there's like short-term gratification versus long-term gain. I think that's something that we need to kind of learn to balance better because as you said, if you travel and spend like 2 weeks and you go to like East Africa, you can hit like 3 countries in one day. You can go to like Tanzania and then Zambia and then like anywhere else in that region on the same visa and have that cultural experience that could enrich you for your life and could inspire your story and inspire the next step. And I guess people kind of trade that for like the short-term gratification of, oh, let me just go to like, LA or let me just go to like Mexico and just chill at a resort, And I think it's hard, especially with the way that the world is at the moment. It's hard to kind of see through, see the long term picture, I suppose. I feel like especially for people in my generation, we're like, oh, the world's like falling apart anyway. Let's just enjoy right now. I feel like how do you kind of balance that? I suppose that short term versus long term gain.
Yeah. I've always also known that history repeats itself. So what's happening right now happened 100 years ago. The only difference is you can now read about it, learn about it, other people are talking about it. So it's nothing that has not already happened before. And the same thing, like over 100 years ago, there's a writer, a couple of writers actually, like Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. Those are a couple of the writers that my mom grew up reading their poetry, their writings, watching their interviews, and knowing that they too left their home country for a good amount of time, and it helped their creativity, right? So you have to look at the fact that history is basically repeating itself, and don't let it stop you from fulfilling your goal and your purpose. There should be the media will contribute to the fear mongering that's going on, but it doesn't have to be that way.
For sure, for sure. That's what it's about. It's about, like you said, like finding your purpose. And I guess that leads me to asking you, like, what do you think? I guess you kind of established it now, but for you, what do you think is your purpose? What is the mission with everything that you're doing? And talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, so my purpose in life is to empower you to confidently step outside of your comfort zone, no matter what that looks like, whether that is for you choosing to uh be the one in your family that leaves and breaks the chain, if you will, the one that does confidently tell their story, the one that finally leaves that job and go be a creative, go be a world traveler, go be a speaker. I'm the one to empower you to confidently tell your story. And because of my gifts of listening and understanding, some people have called me a brand quote unquote therapist because I'm like, okay, so I see you want to do all these amazing things, but how's your heart? Right? How's your head? Where's your headspace right now? So I also have been taking those skills of helping other entrepreneurs to build their brand, and especially with technology changing so many times, a lot of people don't even know where to start for building their brand online. So it's brand strategy, brand therapy, if you will, because I have also been to a lot of countries. It is now travel consulting and eventually group trip hosting, but also
Mm,
because I have navigated all of it while seeing only in one eye, while having my own hearing loss. Um, Most people still don't know how to interact or be patient enough with people who have disabilities that you can't see. So now I'm
mm,
also consulting companies and speaking at conferences about disability accessibility and how to make sure that your own content is more accessible for those who may not be able to interact with it as well as you may think. For example,
mm,
there's a lot of people who use caption because they actually cannot hear. Not the caption because they're in an environment where I got noise around me and I won't be able to actually hear what they're saying. So I want to read what somebody's saying. But there's actually people out there who have a hearing loss, but that's not something that people often see. So educating about invisible disabilities, being a brand therapist and helping you and empower you to tell your story and travel.
Wow, that's amazing. SubhanAllah, like we need more people like you. I feel like do we need these guides, these people that are supporting us in our journeys. Like as
Thanks.
as someone that's like on my own creative journey as well, like I can resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I think even as someone who doesn't have extra difficulties in the way that you've described them, like in extra impairments to do it, it's still difficult. There's so many distractions. There's millions of opportunities and options of what do I do? Do I make gym content? Do I, talk about my faith? Do I talk about myself? Like who actually cares about me? There's all these inner conflicts as a content creator these days. And it's nice to know that there's people out there like yourself who are like trying to help guide us and support us in this journey. So thank you for
Yes.
that.
Thank you.
um, of course, of course. I mean, one thing that we like to talk about on this, and you kind of touched on a little bit, is the idea of finding home. And as I say to all my guests, like finding home is never just about like where is home as a place. Home can be a feeling, it can be a thought, it can be a mixture of everything. What do you think home is to you, and have you found it?
Yeah, home is where the heart is. Have I found it? My heart is always beating and sometimes more loudly than I'm like, are you okay? But home is where the heart is. But I also don't know if I can say I found home, right? There's every country that I go to and I'm surrounded by water, I'm at home. I'm at peace. Right. But have I found that one place where I will always go back to? I'm still looking.
Hmm. And I think that's the beauty of it is that you never find it, and sometimes when you think you found it, it's like wait a second, I've never considered Jamaica. I've never considered like Seychelles, like there's always new opportunities physically of where we can go and then more than that, what we can do. And obviously you found, I feel like you found your home in terms of your purpose, which is amazing. And I think that's very rare these days. So it's good that you have that side of things found. And I suppose it's the best way to say it. Yeah, like one final thing that we like to do on the show is kind of to give advice to the listeners. You've given so much already, and definitely so many things to take away from the call and the conversation. But if there's someone listening, imagine someone like a younger version of yourself. What would you say to them as like one final piece of advice?
Be patient with yourself and give yourself grace. It may seem like you may be in such a rush to leave home. I can't wait to get out my parents' house. I can't wait to do this, can't wait to do that. And then it'll come and then it'll fly by and then you'll be like, well, wait a minute. So give yourself grace, give yourself patience, and what's meant for you will not miss you. Even if it feels like, 15 years will go by before anything will seem to happen with that specific goal that you've had. But what's meant for you will not miss you. And give yourself grace and be patient with yourself.
In Arabic is sabr, and that teaching is so important for us. I think if that's like the one thing you follow in terms of that, like the Islamic teaching, I suppose it's a very good one to have because it correlates in all your life, in personal life, in professional life. It's very important. Where's next for you on your travels? I'm interested. Where are you planning to hit up next?
Yes. Well, I feel like you gotta catch me if you can by following me on YouTube because there's no one thing that's coming up, but I'm definitely working on a group trip to Ghana. Um March 2027 made 70 years of Ghana's independence, and Ghana was the first ever African country to gain independence. So 70 is a long time.
Mm,
And most people, just like, a year of return campaign in 2019, I think most people want to try again. With just, taking those first 10 days of going to an African country. Sometimes it's going to be their first African country ever. So I know I am working on having group trips to the places I've already been to in Africa. So definitely Ghana, excuse me, feels like it's going to be the easiest because I've already been there. I have
mm.
connections there. And of course, Kenya is on the radar as well, and I've been to South Africa. But I think traveling wise, I want to bring people with me. Um, Predominantly, uh, I feel like because of the people who are seeing me, listening to me, if they are of the same religion and skin tone, they're like, I want to be with her. But it really is just I do advise anyone, who wants to travel and they are creative and they just need to figure out, how they're gonna do that, sustain themselves. So I do advise others to travel as well as host group trips. So that's what I can say for sure. I know is coming up, but everything else is just catch me on YouTube and see what happens next.
For sure, for sure. And I'm gonna leave all your links down below and they'll be on screen as well for
Hmm.
everyone to follow you because that's what it's all about. It's about going back. And as you said, 70 years, like that's what I love about being part of the Ghanaian, like being Ghanaian myself is that we were like the first in Africa to do it because of like Kwame Nkrumah and his amazing work. But we're gonna talk more about that on another episode when we dive into the history of Ghana. But yeah, I mean, this is amazing. Honestly, your story is very inspiring. You've achieved so much, and you're continuing to do great things. So people should definitely check you out, follow you, and you should just keep shining bright. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, rate the show 5 stars, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.